Like, we have to understand that this is a special, historic moment. There are more people in therapy than ever before. There are more people meditating than ever before. There are people using such a wide range of modalities. And to me, it's awe-inspiring, and that we have all these huge challenges that we face as a humanity, that we're also given these tools that we can deeply heal our minds so that we can continue trying to change the world into a better place, but at the same time, we're simultaneously changing ourselves.
Young Pueblo, author, but so many other things. I feel like you've become like a beacon of hope for people through your words.
So kind.
Oh, I mean, you're everywhere.
Yeah, things have grown a lot over the past 8 years of starting off on Instagram. But yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to be here and that we're making time to hang out.
I know, I'm so happy. That's one thing I really like about our generation, and I don't know if it's Instagram or what, but before it felt like only like actors and actresses and singers were getting big. Like if you were on TV. Now it's like our favorite authors and poets are.
Oh yeah. I mean, the social media has opened the floodgates for artists, right? To just like become and develop in their own way. And I think, the relationship that the world has with social media is incredibly complex. But one of the big positives is that it's no longer institutions saying, okay, now you're it. And institutions being like, now, your book gets to be published and your book gets to be out there, or this art is the art. It's like people are deciding collectively, with what gets out there. And then institutions have no other choice but to accept and support people that they might not have in the first place. Because when I wrote my first manuscript, I knew, I was like, I'm not taking this to any publisher because they're going to be like, hell no. They're not going to.
Wait, why did you think they would say hell no?
Because it was like 2016, and there was, I think, this whole world of like wellness and personal transformation was obviously inside of individuals, but it wasn't quite mature and popular yet. So my thought, and I could be wrong because I never took the manuscript to publishers, but my thought was like, I don't think they're going to dig this. Let me just self-publish and see what happens. Because if people can connect with this message, then the institutions will come later. And that's what ended up happening.
Wow. Did you see yourself as an artist from the beginning?
No. It was only after I started meditating that it almost felt like that, like the plumbing for creativity was totally blocked. And when I started meditating, it's like, was able to release it and it started flowing because it wasn't there before.
Wow. And so you self-published, but then you also put out your poetry online, and that's what made it take off.
Yeah, so I started releasing the poetry online in 2014, and 2015 it started picking up speed. I started putting in more so in images, and I was really inspired by the first wave of Instagram writers, particularly like Rupi Kaur and R.M. Drake, who were like the first ones to like really just get out there and, put their stuff in black and white. And I realized I was like, I have a different message, but I should try this format, this black and white format. And when I started putting my like poems and the thoughts in that format, things started taking off. So I always think of myself as like a second generation Instagram writer. And because it wasn't until 2017 I self-published, and then 2018 that same self-published book, a revised and expanded edition came out that was in bookstores. So it took a while. Like that whole first 3-year period was me just like honing my voice, figuring out like what topics, particularly personal transformation, like what in that field feels really important to me to explore.
It's so interesting because I feel like we're in an age where so many people are now choosing to be artists and express themselves and not take like the traditional route that maybe their culture or parents would have told them, hey, like this is what you need to do.
Totally.
And it's interesting that you see yourself as second generation, because I feel like I see your name as much as I see those other names. But I feel like people expect these days, like the second they put their stuff out, they're like, why isn't it going viral?
I know, yeah, I know. And it just doesn't work like that. It's like it has to be so many small wins over a long period of time, because I think the journey from 500 followers to 100,000 followers, it took like 4 years, 3 or 4 years. Like it took a long time to get there, and then it picked up speed over time because things sort of grow exponentially like that. But it's interesting. When I was there, like in that zone in 2016, 2017, there were a lot of like amazing writers, and some people like I thought were like, I'm like, wow, this person's so talented. Like I love their writing even more than I love my own, and then they just disappear. They stop. And the ones who ended up, continuing were the ones who they got to the top, or like whatever the top, they got notoriety from just never stopping. And I think that's a key thing.
Yeah, I think even when you plateau, you can't take that as a failure.
No,
and
just time to evolve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about social media, is it makes you feel like you need that instant gratification of likes, but that's not the thing. So what was the thing for you that kept you going? Because initially it was not the constant validation, because like, again, you were growing into being who you are. But
I think I had the objective of like I did want to release my own book, and I wanted to put together a manuscript, but I knew it would take time to sort of write for an extended period of time, figure out which ones are the best pieces, which ones actually make sense. Because that was one thing like that I'm really grateful for that earlier time, was you can write a bunch of stuff in your room, by yourself, but like when you put it out there, you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Like people are actually understanding what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what social media sort of like speeds up that process for writers, because you can actually, get that immediate feedback. And with that said, it's a double-edged sword, because if you're just attached to the feedback and you're like then looking for what people like, and then you only write what people like, then you sort of start losing your creativity pretty quickly. But a little bit of that will at least help you see, okay, this makes sense. Let me keep going. Let me keep playing with these words and figure out, how I can combine this message. And at the time I was so interested in minimalism. I was like, how can I bring this message forward about these things that I'm learning and bring that minimalistic aspect to it? But I think what drove me to keep going was like I wanted to get this, like at least one book done. And by the time I got there, I was like, oh, this is working. And I as I keep meditating, I'm like, I'm learning more. I have more to say.
Yeah. Do you think the meditation was the most valuable and impactful thing along your healing journey? Because I hear you talk about it a lot. I hear the word healing a lot, which a lot with people are trying to do.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Was it the meditation mostly, or was it the meditation and other things? And if so, what were those other things?
It was definitely like 95% meditation for sure. Like I think without it, I wouldn't have been able to make those other behavioral changes in my daily life, because the meditating isn't just like, oh, having peace or building peace in this one moment. It like changed every facet of literally all of my relationships, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my parents, my family, with work, with creativity, like even the idea of like, oh, I should reflect openly, right? Because I feel like that's what Young Pueblo is like I'm considering these topics and then I put them out there and people can agree with them or not, but they're also reflecting too, whether they agree with them or not. And it feels like literally none of that stuff would have happened without the meditating. And then, through meditating, I felt like my capacity expanded and I was able to do more. And then I could see, I was like, oh, you got to treat your body better. You got to start, exercising more. You got to change the way you're, what you put into your body, what you eat and whatnot. And those things were, critical to the healing as well. But I think without the meditating, I wouldn't have had the mental strength to like actually get it done.
Did you get married before you started meditating?
No, after. It was after I did my first silent 10-day course. So my wife and I, we've been together for 16 years. Wow. When she was 18 and I was 19, we met in college. And for the first 6 years of our relationship, it was a bumpy road. Like it almost felt like we were in this hurricane together, and we just like, we didn't know how to love well, right? There was a connection there, but we didn't know how to take care of it. And but when I did that first silent 10-day course, we were actually on a break, and in that moment, it felt like pretty like a fork in the road. Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to stay together, or are we going to go our separate ways? You know, it's been hard being together because we didn't know how to be together, but like, are we going to try again? And after I finished meditating, it just became so clear, you know, like I knew I was like, I'm kidding myself right now. Like, there's no, like, I want to be with this person forever. And I was in Portland, Oregon at the time. When I came back to Boston, I asked her to marry me like 2 weeks after that. And then we were engaged for 3 years and then got married.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. So you got that from the meditation retreat, even that?
Yeah, from the meditation retreat, and just from like spending time out there, you know, like in the farm, and like being, because I was staying in a farm in Portland. And I remember just like going out there to seek clarity about how I was going to move forward on the East Coast. And I definitely got the clarity. And I think the combination of meditating, being with different people, and just seeing that this person that I love so much, but am learning how to actually love, that I want to treat her better, and I want to just show up in better ways for her and for myself too.
I love that. And I want to explore the how to love thing.
Yeah.
Because something that I've been noticing as I do all these interviews, and, I'm on the internet all the time, like consuming and, consuming and curating stuff that I see. I think there's so much power in defining words. I never thought that was a big thing. I never understood why people were like, well, let's redefine this and let's define that. Yeah. And then I started reading more and more about this. And have you heard of like bell hooks?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I started like seeing the way that she would define love, or I would listen to someone define friendship in a completely different way than I had ever heard it. And I'm like, there's so much power in defining what these words actually are, and then acting on those definitions, because we assume lust is love sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We assume like just attraction is love. We assume pain is love. If you listen to a lot of popular music, a lot of it is actually like, I mean, you're really talking about pain and longing and missing someone. That's not love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what did you learn about how to love that was so different than the way you were doing it before?
Oh, that's such a nice question. I think it took me a long time to understand that clarity is love and understanding is love. Like, that took a long time, because when, like, arguments are natural, right? Two human beings, and very imperfect, egos will rub up against each other and there will be friction. How do you handle that friction? And before, it would be like that, blah, blah, blah. And what it ended up switching to, and what it is now, is like, when these difficult moments arise, we try our best to like not fall into that battle, and instead it's like, I want to understand how this series of events moved for you, right? Like, how did you feel as all this was happening? And we'll take turns, like, this is my side of the story, this is how things happen from my perspective. And if I'm genuinely able to understand her perspective, then it makes it a lot easier to just let it go and be like, oh, I see what happened, right? And vice versa. And now that we're seeking to understand as the primary goal, it's so much easier to love each other and be like, oh, okay, we're cool. Now let's figure out a middle path so we can move forward.
Wow. So initially it was the blame thing, seeking to be right, and then finding a person to blame. Second way of loving, just I'm here to understand your side. both people coming in with that energy, and then how do we move forward?
Yeah, and the challenge in that is like, it can't be done without selfless listening. And selfless listening is possible, but it's something you almost have to like, you have to really train yourself to be able to hear another person's story, to like take it in the most compassionate way possible, where you're literally trying to put yourself in their shoes and seeing things move according to how it happened in their own mind as best as you can. And that also involves, in the midst of hearing this story, you're not projecting onto it. You're not like throwing your own stuff. You're not interrupting. You're just like doing your best to take it all in. And then they give you the gift of trying to do the same. And obviously it sounds ideal and it's possible, but it takes work. You got to keep trying.
100%. It's funny. I think about this stuff all the time. On every podcast that I do, I hear a guest say something and I'm like, man, it would be so cool if in schools when we were younger or at home, this would be part of the curriculum. That's like my biggest thought every time I sit down. Yeah. And to me, that right there is such a powerful tool that I wish people taught us when we were younger, because none of us learned any of this stuff.
No, but I think, though, that people in our generation are becoming the teachers, the parents, the principals, like the ones who are like designing these new school systems. And so my hope is that, like, it sucks that we didn't get it, but like hopefully we can give it to the next generation to figure out, like, you know, how do we like build some emotional intelligence, like as we're, you know, moving from 5, 6, 7 years old, and you know, trying to intentionally treat each other with gentleness and all of that. I think it's, I have more hope than I used to, because the more that I'm seeing, I see this convergence happening where, like, to me, it's awe-inspiring that all these techniques, like, or, you know, all these like Eastern modalities of different forms of meditation, all these Western modalities of therapy and psychiatry, there's like so much stuff. And now that the world has become globalized, you can just like whatever major city you're in the world, you can just like type in like, how do I deal with my anxiety? And you're gonna get mad options. You're gonna get tons of different options. And what's your task is to find something that meets you where you're at, something that you're like, oh, I wanna try this, I'm gonna check this out. And something that just sort of connects with your own capacity, because, you know, every technique is not for every person. So some people are really going to like therapy. Other people are really going to like meditation or other things that are out there. So much out there. So you just need to find something that gives you real results, something that connects with your intuition and that shows you tangible changes in your behavior.
Amen. We're so aligned right there. Yeah. Let me tell you why. My favorite thing that you just said was, it's different for everybody.
For sure.
Because there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
There isn't. And I think the world has been trained to think very one way or the other. You know, obviously someone like you have like you provide tremendous hope for people. You have it too, but you provide that where the world can be so polarizing, choose this side, choose that side. And the more I get to know people, the more I realize like there is no one way.
Yeah.
There is no one way. And the most powerful thing that you can do, because we're all, as human beings, we're just all solving problems throughout life. It's just a series of problems, and we're all just going to end up, and they're all different. Everyone's life is so different. And it is very powerful that you can just like type something in on Google. I think what's even more powerful is that you can find somebody whose entire life is devoted to whatever problem you have, that's like the thing that consumes all your energy. So whether it's like a mental health problem, a physical health problem, a relational problem, going through a divorce, you know, being single until later in life, whatever the thing is, the problem that you have, there are people who are going to make you feel like shit about it. And we see that all the time in like politics. Or there are people that are going to provide that hope for you because they've already tackled that problem, or they're on a journey tackling that problem. And if we can just get people to find the leaders in whatever they're looking for, I think we'll just have so much less pain in the world.
I love that you highlighted that, because it's like, it's so true. Like there are some, like, you will find the person who like knows how to fix lower back issues.
Yes.
If you're out there, or like somebody really knows the ankle, or like what, like,
Yeah.
or someone's like a fantastic, like has been meditating for 50 years in this particular tradition that you want to learn more about. And there are all these people out there who've been dedicating their lives. But I feel like it's so important to understand that like people need different tools because we've accumulated different reactions throughout our time. So like every time we react, it makes an imprint on the mind. And all of this is accumulating and making your emotional history, sort of the pains and hurt or even trauma that you've encountered, like it accumulates inside of you. So this shapes the human mind in particular ways. And I think different people connect with different types of techniques because they need something that's like, oh, this fits like where I'm at and the way my mind is shaped right now. And, I think some techniques will like connect with people who've been like really highly traumatized or something like that, where, they may not even want to meditate because they can't even close their eyes because it just feels way too intense. So they need something else. So I think it gives me a lot of hope to just know like, okay, there's a lot out there. So, I think a lot of us have to almost try that like personal transformation, spiritual buffet to just check a few things out. And then you're like, okay, I like this one.
I love that. Deeper. Spiritual buffet.
Yeah.
Did you just coin that term right now?
I mean, I think other people have probably said it too, but it's like,
yeah,
it's true, right? Like people go and they try different things. They're like, oh, I'm going to try a little bit of this, try these psychedelics, try these, this form of therapy, try that meditation. Then you're like, oh, found it. This thing is good.
Okay, that's the way to do it. I put out this tweet the other day about how I went to a life coach who I paid. I just wrote that I paid $250 an hour. I'm sure to some people that was a lot. Worth it for me.
Yeah.
And I just wrote that I was on like a call with her. This was during the pandemic, and I told this story to her a few times. When your mind is usually on a loop. You're complaining about the same thing over and over again. It's a very human thing. And I told her a story maybe like 2 or 3 times, and she quickly noticed it. And she goes, Nicole, you're paying me $250 an hour. Do you want to tell me this story again? Or do you want to figure out an action plan and how we're going to move forward? And I put the tweet up about that. And I can't tell you how many different reactions to that one tweet I got. I was in therapy on and off since I was 12 years old. And when I was in therapy, I did have somebody that would listen to me like that. And I would every week I would say the same thing, like, my parents this, the guy I'm dating that, at school it's like this, my friends are that. And I was on a loop for years and years, and I didn't notice it.
Wow.
And she would sit there and let me process things. And I'm sure in some respects that was helpful because I had somebody to talk to. And it was nice that my insurance was paying. But I remember when I was in my 20s and I told the therapist that I had at the time, I'm like, yeah, I'm making like 200 more a month. And she would be like, that's great. But she wasn't like, okay, well, how can we make more?
Yeah.
Or how can we, take you in another direction where you're a little more financially stable? And it was great that, she taught me how to be grateful in that moment. But at the same time, like, I wasn't being pushed to be more of what I am. And so for the time being, that was cool. But when I got the life coach, my entire life changed.
Amazing.
Everything.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to what you're saying of there is no one size fits all.
Totally.
I want to go back to your relationship with your wife.
Sure. Yes.
But also relationships in general, because I feel like that's a really hard one for people. I mean, it's even hard for me. I'm not in a relationship now. And when I was younger, and if you would have asked me when I was 21, I would have told you, like, I'll be married by 25 and like start having kids and whatever. And now the more I talk to people, I see how hard it is for everybody, not just to get in a relationship, to maintain a good relationship.
Yes.
Because who are we kidding? We see the divorce rates, and then we see how many people stay in marriages that aren't necessarily healthy, but because nobody taught us.
Right.
Nobody taught us how to maintain a good relationship, and to be a little self-aware and all these things that you and I are talking about. So what do you feel like helps your relationship with your wife thrive, and how does that relationship help you evolve into more of who you are?
Oh my gosh, because I see where I need to work so clearly when I'm with her. I think the main tool that we've put into place like on a daily basis, and it's super simple. It's basically we've come to realize that a lot of our points of arguments when we'll sort of fight each other unnecessarily or get upset, a lot of that is before the narrative even begins, one of us doesn't feel good, right? Where one of us will either be more tired that day or just like, have anxiety coming up or have some stress coming up from work or whatnot. And what we've done is we'll check in with each other. The first time is when we wake up, is like check in, like, how do you feel? Sometimes you wake up and you're like, literally will feel still heavy or tired, or you don't feel particularly great, or you feel like your capacity is a little lower that day. So we let each other know. We're like, yeah, I don't, feeling pretty good, or not feeling that great, feeling heavy. Maybe I'm feeling a little sick, But when we check in like that and we check in about where we are in our emotional range, it lets you know how you're feeling. So you're admitting to yourself, you're like, oh, this is, I'm not going to try to push it away or evade this feeling and act like everything is okay. I'm letting myself know how I'm currently feeling. My partner also knows how I'm feeling. And when we both have that information, we can then sort of figure out how we can support each other through the day. And we'll also check in about that a few times. And it becomes really like so helpful because the mind is so quick, and it's so quick to not, it doesn't want to accept one that, oh, temporarily you just don't feel good right now. It's like, why don't I feel good? It's definitely not my fault. It's your fault. How can I make this your fault? And I mean, we had this one moment that was like, it just shines in my memory so brightly because I'm like sitting on my laptop and Sarah was in the other room and she was working on her laptop, and she comes in and she was like, I literally just spent the last 3 hours trying to figure out why this feeling I have inside me is your fault. And she was like, and because I had no reason, my mind kept trying to go backwards in time and further back in time, trying to find some reason. And she was like, it literally has nothing to do with you. And we were both like laughing, like, whoa. And I'm like, dude, I know my mind tries to do the same thing all the time. And sometimes, granted, there's definitely sometimes when we make mistakes and it's our fault. It's like we need, I need to apologize or she apologizes or whatnot. But a lot of the time, these emotions will sort of heat themselves up into unnecessary arguments. And just checking in about where we are and knowing like, yeah, I don't feel that good, and she's aware of it, or she doesn't feel that good and I'm aware of it. It's like, yeah, well, let me try to step up for you. Let me try to like, support you in a way that you want to be supported, or directly ask you like, what can I do anything to help out? And having that, extra information, it has made a world of a difference in our relationship because now we know.
Oh my God. Again, this is more stuff I wish I would have learned earlier. I feel like as someone who, it's not that you just have so many fans, like I feel like you're the type of person that you like read the comments and you know what's going on, and you answer your inbox when you can. I'm sure, and you go out there and you do public like live events.
I do events. I try to answer when I can, but it's rare. Honestly, it's like there's so much.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to. There was a while where I was trying to answer a lot, and I realized I'm like, I have to take care of my own mental health.
Yeah,
like
100%.
if I spend all day in the DMs or answering every single email possible, like I'm just going to be exhausted and I will create nothing new. So I've been having to like very intentionally balance out like, when I can open up a dialogue or not, because it's just like, it can be all consuming.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
I know. I think my point in saying that was, I feel like you're pretty aware of what's going on in the world in terms of like what people are struggling with. Because even what you write, you said it too, you put it out there and you see what people relate to. What is it that you think that people are looking for or struggling with the most? Because of course we're all doing the healing work, and a lot of us are, not everyone, but there's so much that we struggle with. But I feel like there's so many points of connection.
Yeah.
Like when I thought for the longest time, like I was the only one that was struggling with intimacy. Why can't I connect with someone and bond and get into a relationship? Then I start talking to other people around my age, older, younger, and I find out everybody feels this way.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you feel like are plaguing us as humanity?
I think the big one, and it feels like this is part of the sort of macro conversation that's happening now, because I really feel like what is social media? It's humanity having a conversation with itself, and you'll find trends like when you look at it over time, and right? So like I feel like there's like when I started writing online 2015 to 2017, like a lot of the conversation was around self-love. Like, what is it? Is it valuable? What does it look like in my life? People had so many different perspectives. And, that transformed into like letting go, and then that opened up the world of like boundaries. And, you see these ebbs and flows of topics. And I think the topic that I kind of see now, and it's growing, is how much the insidiousness of perfection, right? This attachment to perfection, how we want it not only in our relationships, but in our everyday lives. And I think I've noticed some of the more popular posts that I'll put up are like, realizing that like every day is not going to be a good day in your relationship. Every day is not going to be a good day in your life. Like, it doesn't matter how much work you've done, like you doing that deep inner work of healing yourself, of letting go, of building new habits, like that doesn't mean that the challenges stop. That just means that you know how to process difficulty, right? So when difficult moments arise, like you understand, this is a difficult moment. It's not going to last forever. Let me see how skillfully I can handle it. And the same thing in a relationship. So, but we come across that difficulty with perfection because like we crave it. Like we rather nothing bad happen. We rather everything be pleasant all the time. But when you realize like what is that more deeply, right? It's not just an attachment to perfection. You basically have a bad relationship with change, with impermanence. And I find that so much of the suffering that we have in our minds is because we have a combative relationship with impermanence. And a lot of the work that I do when I'm meditating, right, for myself is like, how much more deeply can I embrace change? Because if I can embrace change, then I'll be able to flow with the ups and downs instead of getting tossed around.
Yeah, I think being resilient is the thing. Is you have to just accept that inevitably bad things will happen, and you have to become stronger, not wish for an easier life or wish for everything to be amazing.
It's not going to be possible.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Here's an interesting one, because I'm sure you've also been seeing there's a rise in popularity of this term manifestation.
Oh yeah, it's
right.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It doesn't go away.
and in some respects, I feel like it is a real thing. I feel like you can manifest great things for your. It's like, I don't know, when you look at your career, for example, like you worked hard, you manifested this.
Yeah.
You know?
But you said it right there. I worked hard and I manifested it, right?
Right.
So I think of the mind as like the mind. It's a GPS, right? It's a Google Maps. You have to put in the address, right? Where are you going? And that's basically your goals. Like, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? But it doesn't stop there, right? You need to actually drive to get there. You need to, follow the instructions, or in that case, in everyday life, it's like figuring out what's the best way to get there and building your own plan. But without execution, it's just not going to happen. And that's one thing where, it's not just about visualizing. It's about knowing where you want to go and taking the steps to get there, because it has to move together. Because I really believe the universe is one of cause and effect, right? Like whatever input you put in, you'll get that output. And the more of that positive input that you put in, eventually you'll get some sort of positive output. And I think some people, when they think about, karma and things like that, because that's really what cause and effect is, they'll have those challenging moments where like they were particularly kind to one person and gave so much to one person, and that person just bounced, right? They were gone. They weren't able to return, weren't able to reciprocate. But sometimes the thing that you gave, it just won't come back to you from the same person.
Yes.
And it won't come back to you in the same way, because there's definitely a lot of people that I've helped or have like trying to be kind to, and then it was a momentary thing, and there's no like, oh, you owe me, but it's like, oh, but this other person that I never expected was helping me all along. Like, like I talked to Simon Sinek the other day. I had no idea that he like loves clarity and connection, and he'd been giving it away as a gift. And he like gave it to Maria Shriver, and now Maria Shriver is like a good friend. I had no idea that she learned about me through him, but it's like, wow, you helped me so much by passing the book to one person. And it's nice to know that, it's like a beautiful mystery, but all you have to do is like, once you understand that fundamental law, try to be kind, like be kind. And even if it doesn't come back to you from the person you want it to come back to, like double down on being kind, because it's going to work out in the long run. I also really believe in, in the Vipassana meditation tradition that I'm a part of, like the teacher S.N. Goenka talks about like attracting like. And I really truly believe that, you open that door to authenticity, to vulnerability, people like that will come. And it's so nice to like, I don't know, just see the different sides of yourself reflected in the people that are coming your way, right? Because not everyone's going to be the same. There's going to be other people that will bring out another part of you that's so important.
Yeah.
And you need to have an emotionally diverse friend group that's like, showing you different things. But I think that's so powerful. It's been a balance of like, wanting to, serve people with these reflections, but also like making sure that I'm not oversharing, because that's one thing that a lot of people who are like, creators or influencers of different type or artists, and because I feel like some things
you need to keep to yourself.
Keep to yourself, and it's
but
just
like what kinds of without I don't want you to feel like you're oversharing.
No, sure,
here, but,
yeah.
But
I think I saw a trend with a lot of friends who are out there who have audiences where they were showing so much of their lives. They would like film every breakfast, every lunch, like now I'm going here and now I'm with this person, and it's like you basically have your own reality TV show that you're filming. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I would hate that. Like, I really would not dig that, So I feel that in a lot of my writing, I'm probably sharing like 20% or 25% of what I'm thinking about. There's a lot of other things I'm thinking about, but they're not like, I'm also thinking about history and economics, and I'm thinking about like things that I'm not an expert to write about. I don't think of myself as an expert in any way, but in topics of personal transformation or relationships, those feel like fair game for everyone, because like if you think about what is important for a human being, it's like water, food, relationships, like I want to also have a normal daily life.
Are you completely open with your wife about everything though?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Ours is like, it's just totally open, like in a way that feels good to the both of us, that like works really well.
Was it like that from the beginning? And I'll tell you why I'm asking this.
Yeah, I do want to know. It wasn't like that in the beginning. In the beginning, it was like, it grew over time, but there was a sense where like the bond that we had between the two of us felt so clear and unavoidable, even in the beginning, because we became immediate like best friends for 3 months, and then we realized there were deeper feelings. And the problem was that we didn't know how to hold the relationship. We didn't know how to take care of the relationship or ourselves. So there was struggle there, but the connection was undeniable. Like it was hard to be away from each other. And it wasn't until we started meditating that it really started making sense. And we were like, oh, this is why we have such a deep bond. Like, we've been on this meditation journey. And like, I don't remember anything you know, about past lives and whatnot, but the experience that I have of loving my wife, being near her, it's like there's so much familiarity there to me that's like, we've done this before. Like, this is not the first
Yeah,
go
yeah,
around, you know?
yeah.
And people can sometimes feel that with friends, with like parents and all that. But I think we've learned that lies in particular create distance. And like they create distance not just between you and yourself, but the person that you're, you know, trying to be so close with, the person that you're building a home with. So where we try to be as honest as possible. Yeah.
Okay, here's why I asked that. Because, you know, dating culture in particular, there's a big difference between the advice that we get for relationships and the advice that we get for dating. Because in relationships, you're learning how to build that bond, strengthen that bond, set boundaries, but be vulnerable, all this stuff. In dating, the goal is attraction. So the messages that you get there, especially like if you remember the books that came out when you and I were younger, like Why Men Love Bitches and like The Game,
Yeah.
which I'm very close friends with Neil Strauss.
Yeah.
And when I asked him about that book, he's like, I mean, that's really a book about insecurity.
Yeah.
And he is not like, he is one of the most powerful inner child relationship, I don't know, writers, coaches, leaders that nobody even knows the impact that he has on men today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember that book, men would use it as like a guide for like how to get laid.
Oh my gosh.
And he wasn't even trying to do that. If you read to the end of the book, he's like, this, I still had a void no matter how many women I slept with, and you know,
Yeah.
like that. But the thing about the dating advice that we would get, the main message was be mysterious, you know, or in the game, like peacock women and or neg them or whatever the thing was. And so much of that advice about dating was the like antithesis of what strengthens the relationship.
Yeah.
So it's like, do we, I don't know, be a little more mysterious in the beginning and gradually take the guard down? Like what's the protocol?
I think it's interesting. I think it depends on the mentality that each person goes into it with, because I've seen this with friends too. Like, you know, some people will want to go in for like a quick, you know, either to hook up or to like have the tiniest relationship for a month. And like I've seen a lot of people go into relationships with that intention where it's like 1 to 3 months max, and then they wrap it up.
Yeah.
And I think it's tough out there, especially with the way that dating apps are shaped, where everything, it's almost like you brought, like you're just in the, you know, a slot machine. Like you're just like swiping, and
Yeah,
you see what you get. But I think that we need more spaces where people can be honest about what is the long-term goal. Because I think there are so many people out there who are, you know, just tired of the constant dating and actually need to be matched up in pools where like serious relationships are actually the genuine goal. And that's something that I'm currently working on, which is interesting, like, because it's coming up right now, but it's I'm hoping to build a relationship app in the future, because I've been seeing so much from my friends, like how, like, one, traumatizing it is, like, on all these dating apps and the way dating works now, but at the same time, like, it's leading it for not too many people. It's like, you know, you'll get some success, but it's leading nowhere for many. And I think like I'm really trying to just, you know, build a place that not only creates relationships, but supports them, and is just like allowing people who are growth minded and who want a serious relationship to find each other, because it feels really needed.
Okay, well, that's beautiful. Tell me when that comes out.
Yes, please. Yeah, I'm gonna need your advice too.
You know, the other thing I think about is our relationships are one thing, friendships and community are another thing. Wouldn't you agree that community is like pretty
It's critical.
necessary?
It's totally necessary. I mean, yeah.
And people don't know how to find community. Like, for example, when I think about the communities I grew up in, I know you grew up in Ecuador, so I want to hear about what that was like. But I think a lot of people felt a lot of shame growing up in their communities because, you know, it would be someone that grew up in like a religious community that was told to like act and dress a certain way. and that they had to abide by these rules, otherwise like they were bad and they would get punished. And so people have an aversion to that word community because their experience of community wasn't good. So where do we find good communities? But also I think the goal, I think people need to start their own communities. Like when I think of Beyond, I'm like, this is going to be a newsletter. It's going to be a community. I've done live events. Like it's a thing now. So what's your take on community?
I mean, there's two takes. One is like the internet. Like I've met some of my best friends through Instagram.
Same.
Like totally, honestly. And it's like there are some people that I met years ago in the beginning or now, and I'm like, we're just connecting on such a vibe. We would have never met in person. We would have never fully crossed paths if it weren't for the algorithm somehow bringing us together depending on one particular interest. So that's one thing, is like I'm super grateful to like my internet friends that have become real life friends. The other side of it is like, so my wife and I, we lived in New York City for 7 years, and our community was essentially our college friends. Like we all went to Wesleyan University, and it was a tight knit group. And we like roll in packs. Like it was like, for some reason, this like Wesleyan crew, we were just like, we'd always roll deep to wherever we're going. And I'm still friends with these people, even like 15 years ago that we were in college. But it was very different. It was like hard to meet like random new people in the street, like in New York, because everyone's just like, the place is just so overcrowded and so small that everyone's keeping to their lane. And when we moved out to Western Massachusetts, and we were living in a town of 2,000 people, and we were taught community by our community members.
There?
Yeah, because we were still existing as like New Yorkers, but when we were like going for a walk outside, everyone says hello. Like you cross someone's path, they're gonna be like, hi, how are you doing? Like, what's up? And I was so used to just like keeping my eyes to the ground
and walking fast
and just going past. But it's like, no, you can't do that there. Like we're all here interconnected. And it's funny because like, we'll live out in the middle of the woods, but this community, like we all have each other's numbers. We all like, if there's a storm that comes by, people are like, like helping you. Like if you don't happen to be home, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go check your basement, make sure it's not flooded. Or, this is my person that's going to help like, take the trees down that fell. And everyone's like actively trying to share, connections and like share like, different ways to help each other. And I was so like, within 6 months, I was like in it. I was like, I love this. This is like amazing to just be in community with all these people. And then I'd go back to visit New York City for the first time, and I'm sitting on my boy's stoop in Brooklyn, and somebody walks by, and I'm like, hey. And this person looks at me like I'm crazy. They're like, whoa, why, And I was like, oh, right, I'm in New York City. Let me pull it back. And it's just, I think it's something that's so valuable and so important for us to not forget about, especially those of us who live in major cities, because like we need each other to understand ourselves. Like we understand ourselves in relation to other people as well. It's not just like you in the mountain alone, like you have to be like in community with other people, and the way you act in these communities will show you how much progress you've made, how much you've grown, where you need to grow next. So I think these things need to be cherished, cultivated, and I'm glad that you're like building out, like your community with Beyond, because like we need that, we need these places.
Yeah, 100%. So are you still living there?
Yeah, I'm deep in the woods, and I love it. I love it. Everybody says hi. It's so nice.
Because you're in a community. That's the thing. I was so shocked by how lonely people felt.
Yeah.
Do you get that a lot?
No, I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, yeah, it's really lonely.
Meaning like, I know you have your community and your, you have that sense of camaraderie. You have people to lean on. But do you get that in that, like, the people that are your fans that are consuming your work, do you get that a lot of them have like a...
Some of them, yes. But yeah, like I've gotten messages like that. And I think, that's just one of the things that the United States and probably the world are dealing with. Like loneliness is a massive epidemic, and it's has physical repercussions. And it's very, like when I when you think about longevity and like, building a healthy life, loneliness is the opposite of that. It's like going to shorten lives. It's going to, it's going to wreak havoc on your health. So I think it's the double-edged sword where like, yeah, you're meeting friends on the internet, but then the internet at the same time isolates you. And everything about the United States is like hyper atomized, right? Like this like atomic nuclear family. These are the people you talk to, but there's not much outside of that. And it's very contrary to how things are in Ecuador, where like, so I was born there, but I came to the United States when I was 4 years old. But when I go back and visit, like my family, they will live really close to each other, like very close to each other. And you'll have easily 3 generations in the same household or in the house right next to each other. And it's so like nourishing to just like have your cousin right there and your aunts right there and like the newest babies right there, and like there's all these people, and you'll see that it's not just us, it's like all the other families are like living in community, and then like everybody knows everybody in the street. And even the way the streets are shaped, there are sometimes in Guayaquil where you'll have parties that will slip out into the sidewalk, and then the neighbors are also part of the party, and like the person across the street, and like
Like, even if they're not invited, like
even
they're
if they're not
invited.
invited, they're just like, you're literally in this, sometimes the houses will face each other in streets where cars can't pass by, and it's just like a tiny little sidewalk that's separating the houses, and everyone's chilling, and it's beautiful. But we don't have things like that here.
I know, it makes me emotional just as you're talking about it. I got this, I posted this photo of me and my friend like eating pizza the other day. And I had a guy comment. Where's my phone? I want to read this to you. So I had a guy comment on the post, and the comment made me so emotional because I'm sure it represents like what so many people feel.
Yeah.
I'll read it to you. So this guy wrote, I make pizza every 2 weeks. Over time, I have perfected it and can make a variety of different pizzas, some gourmet and some reminiscent of Domino's. However, I eat them all by myself. I'd love to have company so that I can enjoy them with others as well. I'm not even seeking romantic company. Any company would do, but it's been hard making friends. How do I fix this? And I messaged the guy, lives in Laguna, and there's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like figure out, what do I say? Like, and so I tell him, are there any group activities that people do? Are there any groups you can join? And how would you answer this question? Because that was like the only advice that I had. But even as you're talking about New York, I'm thinking like, I bet people in New York feel this way too.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, things are so, like, everyone is in their own world there. And I think it's hard. And I think your line of reasoning is something similar that I would use, is like, try to go out there according to your interests. And it takes that, like, that courage to like try again and like, go to different events that you can get plugged into, or, talking to different people. But it does require an amount of courage and I think a certain degree of vulnerability, even if you're not totally open. But like, hey, like, you want to be friends? Like, I remember one of my oldest friends that I had from 7th grade, when I went to this this high school in Boston called Boston Latin Academy, that like you're there from 7th to 12th grade, and it's a public school. But I remember I was sitting behind this girl. I didn't know nobody there. And I'm pretty sure the first thing I was like, hey, I was like, you want to be friends? She was like, yeah, and like we've been friends ever since. And like, she's my homie, lives in San Francisco, and like I see her every time I go there.
No, what, you just were like, hey, I want to be friends?
Yeah, and she was down. Yeah, because we didn't know anybody, but like I remember that moment, and it was scary to like put yourself out there and be like, are you down? Like, because they might not be.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's challenging.
It is challenging. In LA, it's particularly challenging because
What's it like here?
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
First of all, a lot of people fly into LA because the goal is, I want to be famous. I want to make it in Hollywood. I want to make it as a model. This is the industry. So, it's a lot of like chasing fame mentality,
Okay.
and a lot of like, and there's also a lot of wealthy people that live here.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you go out, it's like, I'm sure it's not like this in every neighborhood, but
Yeah.
growing up, I remember going out, and even still sometimes, like, you'll be talking to someone and they're kind of looking over your shoulder to see like, oh, is there someone more important here that I should be talking
Oh,
to? And you
damn.
feel
Wow.
that. And so a lot of times you feel like, how do I signal to people that I'm also important, or that I'm somebody,
Yeah.
or that, and honestly, there's ways to do that. Sometimes there's strategies for that too. Like I sometimes will tell my girlfriends, like, I don't know, dress like this, or
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
it's so weird to say it out loud.
Yeah.
But I'm such a strategic thinker.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at like pattern recognition. There are times, just like because of the way that I dress, people will come up to me and the conversation starter is literally, oh my God, I love your pants.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
or whatever. Oh my God, I love that necklace. Whatever the thing is. And I'm like, man, it is such a superficial thing, but it at least gets the door open. I don't
Yeah.
know. And then you can figure out a way to bond authentically. But that was something that I noticed in LA, because it's so much about like beauty and fashion and standing out. But I mean, there's other ways to connect too. Like, it's not always that way for me, because I don't know if you know this, but I used to do red carpet reporting.
Okay.
So I was at
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
Oscars
Yeah.
and Golden
Yeah.
Globes and stuff. And so because I was in that world, that became my strategy.
Right. Right.
And as I started doing more and more of that, I noticed that the interviews were not very deep. At those events, I was only allowed to talk about certain movies. What was it like working with so and so? Who do you think's gonna win? I actually don't give a shit about that stuff. If you like, real talk. And when I started Beyond, I was like, okay, maybe I can't get to this A-list actor, but like Andrew Schultz is an up and coming comedian. He'll talk to me.
Right.
And
right.
now look at him. Or like,
Yeah.
I would go after authors who were so much more open to talking to me. And something I like about authors, and you'll relate, is they know their message. Sometimes, when someone's an actress or actor, like, they're literally playing a role. That doesn't mean that they're evolved or not evolved. Like, they could be very deep and very,
Right,
a lot
right.
a lot of actors do write books, but I wasn't allowed to have those conversations. I wanted to talk to people about their relationships, their childhoods, their divorce, their marriage, whatever the thing was that I could learn from and that other people could learn from. I wasn't getting that over there.
Wow.
So I went after authors.
Yeah.
So if you'll notice, a lot of my friends, even this, like, it all stems from my desire to go out there and interview people who had messages to share. That was it.
That's amazing. I feel like I'm so glad, because I do so many of these interviews, but this feels like a genuine conversation, and like we're flowing back and forth, and it feels so real. But I want to tell you, you're like describing this, and I got to tell you this quick story that my friend who lives out here, so she works for one of the major talent agencies, and she's an agent. And she told me the last time I was here, she was like, when she goes out on dates, she can't tell people what she does, that she's an agent, because she's like, immediately the date's over and they're just working an angle. And it's like she becomes like a lily pad that, helps them bounce to the next place.
Oh my God.
And she's like, so that she'll literally have to tell people that she's a project manager or a teacher or something, so that they can just get to know her for her. But as soon as she's like, oh, I'm an agent, it's a wrap. It's like no longer like it's, something, a person to use, as opposed to a person to understand and get
Connect
to know.
with.
Yeah, it's like I had that story is like burned into my mind, because it's like, it's scary to me. That's pretty scary.
Okay, well, I relate to that so hard.
Yeah.
Because as I grew over time, and I'm not known in the way that some of my friends are known as public figures, but the people that I'm friends with are known in that way. The people that come and speak at my events, like Naval Ravikant.
Yeah.
Or Chris Voss, or an Eric Weinstein, or a Neil Strauss. A lot of people see that I'm in that world, and I've noticed even on dates that once that comes up, or sometimes it can't even be avoided because you could see it on my Instagram.
Yep.
The entire conversation becomes about that. So that's a really interesting thing that you brought up to me. I would love to meet your friend because
You two should be friends.
yeah,
You would
we
love
should
her.
be friends
Yeah,
because
she's dope.
because
Yeah.
that's so crazy
She's
to
like a
me.
tastemaker like you are. Like I've always thought like whatever, like this person in my mind has been cool for so long. Like when we were in college, I was like, I need to be friends with her. She's dope,
Dope.
you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's still like that.
Yeah, but I relate to that because sometimes I even would lose myself in these like stories of who I became professionally, and I feel like it hindered my dating because everyone would always ask me about that stuff, and so I would talk about it, and then it's like you lose the flirting, you lose the like witty banter, and it becomes
Yeah.
all about like what you do for work and like, oh well, how can we work together, and oh I'd love to meet so and so, and in some respects, like I don't know, I like that too, maybe just not in my dating. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, I look at you and I'm like, oh my God, I need so and so to know. The same way Simon Sinek handed your book to Maria Shriver, which by the way, Maria Shriver was such an influential and powerful figure in my brother's life because
Oh, nice.
my brother and her daughter were close friends growing up. So he was
Cool.
always there.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's so caring.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like she's one of those people that she wants to make the world a better place.
Genuinely.
And you can just like she'll talk. My brother used to tell me she would talk to him for hours about like his life and
Right.
our home life. And I was like, really? Like you go there and she just asks you all these questions? He's like, yeah, she's like our friend.
You know what's mad funny is Maria is like she's so dope, and like I'm still getting to know her, and there was this one moment where I think she interviewed me for the first time, and this was only like maybe a year ago or so. And my wife's mom and all her sisters, she's got a bunch of sisters, so like my wife has like literally 6 aunts, and when my mother-in-law found out that I was interviewed by Maria Shriver, she lost it. She was like, what? Because like you do all these other things and like they don't understand like different podcasts and what's a big one and what's not. And,
Yeah, but
right?
she's a known name.
When they heard Maria Shriver, her and all her sisters were like, oh my God, like what is this kid up to? Like, he made it, and it's such a funny like. It like covered the gulf of the generational gulf that was there.
Yeah. No, it's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so fun, and I know that because a lot of people here have that reaction to her. Like, she was on big news networks and doing incredible stuff, and just that's really cool. By the way, I didn't know she interviewed you.
Yeah, no, she's dope. Yeah, I'm super grateful. She's been such a positive influence in my life.
Yeah, I love that. So I relate to your friend, and I always think about the dating to relationship pipeline.
Yeah.
Always.
I think so, and I think it's hard, like, because you want to, like, I never tell this story. When my wife, when I told my wife that I had feelings for her, right, back when I was 19. She looked at me and she was like, I need time. She was like, I need to think. And I was like, cool. I walked away. I went out to a party, but just like super pensive, checking my cell phone all the time to see when she would hit me up. She hits me up 3 hours later and she's like, come back so we can talk. She told me that like we both go to my dorm room. And I was like, hey, how are you doing? The first thing she asked me, she was like, what are you thinking long term? And I was like, what? I was like, do you even like me? Like there was no, because I told her I liked her, had feelings for her. I got nothing back. She just immediately needed to process. And she told me afterwards that she had to think about like, I really like him as a friend. I don't want to mess this up. Like, should we genuinely date? But if we're going to date, like, are you serious? Because if you're not serious, it's a no-go. So she put it up, the first question, like, what are you thinking long-term? And I remember in my mind, I was like, I don't even know if you even like me, And she was like, yeah, totally. But I wanted to make sure. And I feel like there's a boldness there that I think can totally scare off tons of people, of course. But when she let her parameters be known, it was clear to me if I wanted to enter into those parameters or not. And I'm grateful to her, because who would have thought, like, now we're like 15 years deep. And if she hadn't said that, you know, or she hadn't entered with that frame of mind, I think that frame of mind like helped the both of us so much. And to me, it's just hilarious that at 18, she was like, what are you thinking long term?
Oh my God, I
like,
love her.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love that she knew to say that at that age.
And I know. I'm grateful, because like now I'm just, you know, we got to grow up together. Yeah.
It's crazy because I feel like a lot of people would be so afraid to say that, to rock the boat and say that.
Yeah.
And I find that the more bold people are in the way that they communicate, bold and vulnerable. Because in a way that she's being vulnerable to tell you, are you serious?
Totally. Yeah.
But the more bold and vulnerable you are, the closer you get to the thing that you want. You guys are married.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a good relationship.
Yeah, we love it. We're having fun.
Yeah. And so, man, it's so funny because I keep having this conversation over and over again. You know, one of the reasons I actually, Beyond the Interview existed way before this podcast did.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to start a podcast. My manager, Jeff, he negotiated my first sponsor for me. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And he's like, you're doing it.
Yeah.
He's like, I know this is something that you want to do and you're going to be successful at it. You're doing this. And the reason I was so afraid to start a podcast was a cultural fear that I had, where, like, you know, you keep seeing this I'm sure you see this conversation just because you're tapped in, of like masculinity, femininity. You see that a lot. So I grew up thinking I have to be passive, very feminine, quiet, a listener, not bold, not express my opinions too much. And I was like, I can't start a podcast because then people are just going to think that I'm some like opinionated bitch with a podcast.
Yeah.
So if that's going to harm me and make and get in my way of like getting married and having a family, then I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Like, that's how scared I was. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be lumped into this category of career boss, opinionated girls. There's no way.
Yeah.
And then I had this friend of mine, Ronan, who's like, Nicole, you've played that other game and it hasn't worked. Like, you have clearly there's no problem in attracting a man. Like, literally any girl can dress hot, look good, post a thirst trap.
Yeah, yeah.
And a million fire signs come through. Oh, what are you doing this week? It's not hard. But to really connect with someone on a deep level, I have not had that in a very long time. No podcast, no connection. Then he goes, you keep telling me you want to get married. Married means one person. So actually, if you go and put yourself out there and you do this podcast, then you're narrowing it down to one.
Yeah.
Like the people that are going to be attracted to you, for you, you're not going to get, you know, the guys that are responding to your thirst traps from it, but you'll get the guys who are listening to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, interesting. And it's so crazy that fear stopped me. Like, I was actually afraid of so many things. I would have never said that, even at like age 30, what your wife said to you at 18. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I'm sure a lot of girls would be afraid to say that to someone. But in reality, we all want a relationship. We all want to be with someone. And that was the thing that brought you closer. You had to think, am I in it for that or no? And you're married now. So I love it.
Yeah, yeah, and it took a long time to really like double down on it. And I feel like I was always the one who was kind of like on the fence. I mean, she was on the fence sometimes too when things got hard, but we like both sort of learned over time that we wanted to make this work, and it was going to take a lot of effort. And you know, I'm grateful because I feel like it's because it's in part because of her that Young Pueblo exists. It's all these things, like I didn't do any of this alone. Like we've been working together in conjunction, where she gave me time to to be able to develop my voice as a writer and to really just like keep trying to put more reflections out there, work on the first book, work on the second book, and get all of this to be more mature so that I can make a real career out of writing. But if it wasn't for her support, like she held us down when she worked as a scientist so that I could have time to just like learn how to write. And
Does she still work as a scientist?
no, not anymore. Now she's my manager full time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in what capacity do you guys work together? Like what's
I
the
think
dynamic?
the main thing is, I mean, she handles all the like Young Pueblo communications with all of the sort of like the talent agency, the manager, not the managers, the publishers, the just like all of the different kind of the companies we're working with and all that. So she's kind of just like crafting all of that, like who we're saying yes and no to and who we're kind of working with. And we do a lot of the bigger decisions together. Like when we decided to work with United Talent Agency, like they were just such beautiful people, and we both met with them, and we're like, and afterwards we're talking to each other, and we're like, they felt pretty good.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, like I like them. And only because the both of us said yes did we like agree to work with them. And it's sort of the bigger decisions, like we both need to feel it out. And it's always about feeling, because like a lot of people will tell you the same thing and they'll offer you this and offer you that.
Yeah.
But if the person feels good, then we're like, yep, let's work with these people. But then she helps with all of that side of things, so that I can just focus on the writing. And then I do the writing, the posting, and then I also work on the venture capital side with a company that I made with a few friends who are in Silicon Valley. And we basically raised a $10 million fund to invest in companies that are building sort of that next generation of tech companies that are created in a compassionate manner, where like we understand that tech can make you more lonely, can make you more depressed, can affect your mind in negative ways. So these are companies that are not trying to do that are trying to hold the mind more gently.
Yeah, I heard you mentioning that to Steve Bartlett on Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, so that company is called Wisdom Ventures, and I've been spending the past 2 years just like getting to know the venture capital world, being a general partner, helping make these investments, and now I'm working on this other company that I mentioned earlier that'll come out next year. So because she is basically helping with all the Young Pueblo stuff, and I can just focus on the writing, it's opens up time for these other adventures too.
Okay, wow. My mind is spinning because I already know like a ton of people that I should introduce you to.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after. But I love that you're doing that because it's so important. And I feel like there's a lot of people I talk to in tech who are very focused on this same thing. Like they're realizing that the problem is that we're so disconnected, even though we're constantly on these devices that are supposed to connect us.
Right. And I think that's the big problem from the sort of that era of like 2010 to 2020 of a lot of these different technologies that we're using every day now, that they're good, but they need to keep evolving because they've done a lot of good things, but they've also caused a lot of harm. So we just have to keep pushing it and try to actually design things in a compassionate manner where whoever's creating the product, they're like, we're actively going to keep the well-being of the user in mind while we're designing it. Whether it's a well-being company or not, it's like, let's make sure that the mind is not hurt in the process of using this.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that so much. Let's talk about friendship for a second.
Sure.
How would you define friend?
Friend, I mean, I think a friend is someone that can just like see you and you can see them, like whether you're similar or not. Because I think that's one thing I've learned about friendships is that we all have our different evolutionary trajectories and we're working on different things. But some of the longest running friendships that I've had, they're not very demanding friendships where like I think about my boy Lennon, where him and I became friends when we were in 4th grade. We're in the same 4th grade class. We've been friends for literally 25 years. And our friendship will ebb and flow, where some years we're like together all the time, always chilling, always doing mad things together. Other years, we're in different cities, or, or especially when, when he had his child, like those first few years, it was just like so focused on the child and rearing the child and helping with that early stage. And we'll have different evolutions of the friendship. And I'm just so grateful because even though we're different people and we're working on different things and, we may be living in different places, it's like there's an element of home there. And it's really interesting. I think this dynamic with friends that I've noticed now, where if I have new friends, I look particularly for the quality of, is this someone who likes to grow? Like I'm really attracted to that,
Me too.
I'm just like, if somebody really likes to grow, it's like, cool, we can bond. Doesn't mean you have to meditate like how I do or do whatever that it's like, but if you're growing as an individual, that's mad cool.
Yeah,
like,
if
tell me about that.
evolving is a priority, we're good.
I know, that's like the main thing. But with my homies from back in the day, I really, like I love them so much that it's like their family, and they're all, growing and doing things in different ways, but they're their own people. I'm never trying to change them. I'm myself. They accept me for how I am. But there's this like, it's almost like we're this undividable family. So we're just friends for life, whether we're talking the same lingo or believing the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it goes back to I told you earlier. I think defining things is really important because we grow up having people that we think are friends, and then we realize like, oh no, this isn't a friend at all. The definition I give for me is someone who can celebrate your wins with you, but also be there during the hard times. Because I think if someone's only there when things are good, that's bad. But then there's also, and people think this is a good thing. Oh, they're there for you during the hard times. That means that they're a good friend. It's not, they have to be there for the wins too, because a lot of people like hearing other people complain about life to confirm that they're not the only one suffering. And I don't like that.
Oh, that's so, wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's a deep awareness right
it's
there.
It's a really, like, if you had a friend, for example, and you're a very successful poet, author, public figure, if they're only there to listen to you when you're like, man, I'm down bad, but then like you come out with a new book and they're never sharing it or saying congratulations or offer any... It would make you feel some type of way.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think acknowledging that is really powerful. I think people don't realize how much we all need recognition and acknowledgement. It's different. I mean, you're a public figure, so it's I'm sure you get enough of it.
Yeah.
But not everybody is famous.
No, and I think that's two things that you're hitting at right there that I love is like, one, I love my friends, especially my college friends and my friends from before then, that they are super happy for me, super proud, but they also, in their own way, could care less. They're like not impressed, right? Oh yeah, I lost my thought, but that's fine.
It's okay. I have lots of other thoughts. Don't worry.
Yeah.
There's a question that I ask everybody on this podcast. And the reason I ask it is because there's so many messages that we all feel are important to share. But it's hard to determine which message is the most important or most urgently needs to be shared in this moment in time. And so I came up with a scenario to help with that.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay. So you're at the Oscars and you are nominated for, let's say, a documentary about healing. And they call out all the nominees, and then finally they announce the winner, and it's you. And you walk up to the stage, you hold up your award, you thank everybody you need to thank, your parents, Sarah, all the podcast hosts and your fans and everyone who helped you spread these messages and bought your books and helped you with the documentary. And then there's about a 45-second to 1 minute window where you can say anything. And it's going to go viral. There's going to be headlines in all the major outlets. Going to be on TikTok, Reels, everything. And I know those moments when, like, Matthew McConaughey has given a speech or someone has given a speech, and it goes viral.
It goes viral, yeah.
So in that time span, what message is so important to you that's what you would share in that moment?
I think it has to be the message that healing is not only possible for the individual, but we need individuals to double down on their healing if we're going to change the world and move it in a better direction. Like, we have to understand that this is a special, historic moment. There are more people in therapy than ever before. There are more people meditating than ever before. There are people using such a wide range of modalities. And to me, it's awe-inspiring that at the same time that we have all these huge challenges that we face as a humanity, that we're also given these tools that we can deeply heal our minds so that we can continue trying to change the world into a better place. But at the same time, we're simultaneously changing ourselves, because this happens over and over historically. There are always groups of people who want to change the world and make it a better place. But oftentimes they win, they gain power, and the ugly version of themselves arises, because that's what power does, right? Power pulls out the roughest parts of the ego, and then these people that were once heroes actually just start replicating the thing that they were once fighting against. So for us to get it right this time is we have to double down on our healing. Not only is it going to make your life better, but if you continue healing yourself, your creativity is going to become brighter than ever. You're going to look at old problems and see new solutions. You're going to improve all facets of your relationships, but it's also going to change society. So we have to keep going. Yeah.
I love that. I do end on that question, but I have more questions, so I'm just going to keep going. Just a few more, though. So as happens with any public figure, of course you have your fans. Of course you have your fans. That never comes without critics, ever. So as you've put yourself out there, I'm sure you look at some of the criticism, and I don't know what your process is with it, but in many ways, we all look at that and think, no, this person doesn't understand me. And I wish you can't address every single critic, obviously, like there's no time. But in what way do you generally feel misunderstood?
Oh, that's a good one. I think probably the most common misunderstanding is, like, when I post something, it's not that this is the end-all be-all of a message and that this is for everyone. This message is actually for those that it is for, the people who connect with it. So, right, it's a point of reflection, not a fact. So some people get upset because they're like, oh, I don't see life that way and blah, blah. It's like, great, I'm happy for you. Like, this wasn't for you. Fantastic, right?
Next.
Love it. But there's no like, I'm not like dominating a narrative here. I'm just pointing out reflection. So I think people misunderstand that sometimes. And at the same time, I've had to teach myself that, like, if I'm everything for everyone, then I'm nothing, right? Nothing for no one. And I love that, because it's really true. Like, you just can't make everyone happy. You can't, like, stretch yourself out that wide, that, it's literally impossible. So you try your best, you try your best, that you share the reflections that you think are important. They help a bunch of people. Some people are like, they disagree, and other people, might get upset, but it's like your intention was never to upset them, and it was literally just a poem. Like, it's so it's, you try your best, and ultimately you can't control people's perception. So I try not to worry about it too much, because I'm not like I'm not out there to please everyone
Yeah.
or prove anything. It's just like, yeah, if you don't like it, because think about it. To me, I find that it's a very natural thing to have preferences, right? So like there are some authors that I love more than other authors, but if there's a particular book that I didn't love, I don't hate the author,
Yeah.
right? I'm not like, it's just like, oh, that wasn't for me. Like, and that's been my line. And when I think about that, it's really helpful. Like, it's not, I don't like this, it's just not for me. And that's great. That's a, great, but if you're like, not only do I not like this, I hate this, and you just put tons of negative energy into it, for what? You're just bringing yourself down.
That's my one thing with Beyond that I've noticed is the political side of things has turned people's brains into brains that have no tolerance for anything. And there's there are amazing people that are doing the healing work and they're not like that. But there's definitely a lot of people who feel like they need to take a side or a stance on every single thing.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I feel like I'm trying to teach people is that if you can just be like tolerant and let things go. For example, I would never, as someone who's pro-choice, I would never sit there and argue with someone who's religious and is pro-life. I just wouldn't do it. The conversation's never going to go anywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I would vote in one direction, but there's no way in hell I'm going to spend my time online because that person really believes, like, hey, I value life.
Right.
And to me, that is murder, and that's their opinion.
Right.
To me, I also value life, but I'm thinking of it in a different way.
Yep.
Is this person equipped to be a mom?
Yeah. It's I like the way that you're sort of positioning that too, because I have been doubling down on not forcing myself to make an assessment. Like I got this quick story. So I went to a 45-day meditation course that was in the very beginning of 2022. And I was totally away, like not on the internet, didn't have my phone, no computer.
For 45 days?
45 days, totally offline, just meditating. Towards the end of that meditation course, the Ukraine war started. And I come out and I go on Twitter and I'm like, just got out of a long meditation course, haven't been online. And people were like commenting underneath. They were like, don't check the news. Don't do it. Like, like preserve your peace. You don't want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh snap, like what's happening? And I go on Instagram and let me tell you, everyone's stories were fired up. People were so pro-war, so against war, so this, so that, both sides of it, and both sides extremely extreme, right? Like really like, this is the right way, the only way. And I'm watching everything go down and I'm like, wow, like what's going on? And then I feel the internal pressures of like, I should be part of this group, or I should be part of that group, or like, am I for it? Am I against it? And then luckily my mind was like, you need to slow down. You literally do not even know what's going on. You have zero information. So don't just build a perspective or take a stance because you see some of your friends on one side. You also don't know what they know, so take time to learn. And I think that moment, I'm really grateful for it because it was like, I don't need to jump and just be like, say what everyone else is saying.
Yeah.
I need to just sit back and learn. And to me now, like, that idea has evolved now. Like, I'm not interested in debates. Like, I'm interested in thinking together, right? Like as a cohesive unit, let's consider topics together. And if we find points of disagreement, I'd rather ask you, tell me more, right? Like I want to understand more of what you're thinking and why you think that way. And not to say that it's going to change my perspective, but just because I'm curious about how you see things. And I think it's just been a really helpful experience, like coming out and seeing everyone, and it's just like, whoa, like everyone chose sides and is digging in the trenches. And I think I'd rather just take my time, I take my, and of course you got to speak up. There are moments where your voice needs to be heard, but be intentional, like learn, read, like don't just like say
don't
what
react
everyone
just
else is
because,
saying.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem where, and again, back to the community thing, because I noticed the way things we're in politics, and to me, that's a political issue.
Oh, for sure.
The second you feel that you belong to a political side, which is why I'm so apolitical, then you kind of feel like you need to agree with them on everything. And if you don't,
you're outside of the herd.
yeah. And so that's why I noticed that a lot of people do it. And another big goal of mine, and I have a lot of friends who are political commentators, a lot of friends. But my whole goal is, let's not rely on politicians and this line of thinking to help our lives, because it won't.
Yeah.
And these people that we're voting for and fighting over, they're not going to help you.
Yeah.
You're going to help you. Always.
Yeah.
So to me, that's why I like the young Pueblos and the Jillian Tureckis of the world, and like Cody Sanchez with her boring businesses, and Naval Ravikant with everything that he talks about.
Right.
To me, I'm just like, I want to find the problem solvers of the world, and I want to point people in that direction. That's all I want to do.
There's a lot of value in that, because we can work on the micro level and get a lot done, and it doesn't all have to be at this macro level. And I mean, I feel you, like institutions need to change. Like I was just talking to a friend earlier, was like, we're always going right and left, but we never go up. You know? We need to elevate, like it's time, you know?
Yeah. On the dating conversation, the masculinity, femininity thing is one topic. And then have you heard the return to tradition? Like,
I've seen a lot of that on TikTok.
Okay, exactly. Or like the stay-at-home mom thing. And when I look at it as someone who's like, I feel like I'm evolving the way you are, there's no one size fits all. If you want to be a working mom, if you want to not have kids, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, those are all.
That's what I'm saying. When you brought that up, I was like, oh, this is an easy one. You just do what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And to me, like, people that are sitting there and being like, oh, we need to return to family and this and that, and we need women to, not go the career boss babe path and blah blah blah. It's like, I remember the way that some of the right-wing commentators, some of which I'm friends with, reacted to Chelsea Handler making a parody video. Do you remember this?
No, I think I might have missed it. Yeah.
I'll play it for you. The way they reacted to her, she's a comedian, just making a video about how she smokes weed and masturbates all day.
Yeah.
And she's just like, yeah, I'm doing great. And everyone on that side was like, oh, it's so sad. Watching women over 35, not having kids and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't think she wants that. And to be honest with you, not everyone needs to be a mom.
No. You have to find your own way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to me, and I confronted one of my friends who was on that side. And I was like, I don't like the way you're talking about this. And I was lucky, he was very understanding, and he's like, oh, I didn't realize that it was such a big deal the way I reacted.
Yeah, this is, you're shining a light on a really sort of important quiet function of the ego that it does so quickly, where the ego will want other people to think and act just the way it does. Why? Because it finds comfort in that. It finds security in that. So a lot of times when people are trying to get everyone else to believe the same narrative that I'm putting out there, see things the same way, but it's just why? It's one, that's impossible. Two, it's it's unnecessary. Why do you need to dominate? Just let it be. Let people flow and exist. To me, what matters most is that we stop intentionally and unintentionally harming each other. And then outside of that, you do your thing. You do you. Yeah.
I love that so much. But I think that's the most important thing, is that we need to be having conversations that move the needle, or as you said, move us up, because we're not really having that.
No, and I think that's one of the toughest parts. And I'm grateful to meditating, because I think meditating in particular has helped me see subtlety where I did not see subtlety before. Before, the mind would just jump between black and white, but now it's can see how both things may converge, or see something, find a middle path that wasn't quite there before. You know, a lot of times like this meditation technique that I've been practicing in for the past 11 years, it originates from the Buddhist teaching. And sometimes people will ask, you know, in that regard, like, and I remember that was the question one of the first questions I asked the teacher in my first course, like, wasn't the Buddha craving enlightenment? And he was like, no, he had enlightenment as a goal, right? And in my mind, like, I couldn't originally see a difference between the two, but now it's so much more clear where, like, when you're craving something in particular, there's that element of constant stress, right? You're just like, you want it so bad, and when you don't get it, you get so upset. But when you have something as a genuine goal, an objective goal, you may not get what you originally were striving for, but then you don't get upset about it. You like actually go back to the drawing board and you re-strategize and you figure out how you can do things better to keep aiming towards that goal. And I think it's been a valuable lesson, and it showed me like, wow, like we're constantly swaying from extreme to extreme and missing the middle path.
Oh, 100%. I think what makes it worse is the being on our phones so much and scrolling so much. So I have another question for you that I think you'd be able to answer. Because you know, you do take care of your mental health.
Yeah.
You know, people don't like to admit this, but you do have a little more control over what you see and what you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you can unfollow accounts, you can follow certain accounts, you can mute certain accounts.
Yep.
You do sort of have that choice.
Yeah.
And you don't have kids yet, do you?
No, not yet.
But you want kids?
Hopefully in the future.
Okay. I guess you can answer this question with or without them, but you know, you're talking to a young person,
Mm-hmm.
and you advise people to consume the internet. Like for me, I just would say follow the problem solvers. If you see
Yeah.
people that are out there, and largely this is what helped me. When I got into like the tech, VC, entrepreneur world, I was like, oh man, these people are solving problems all day, way better than the like political people who are just, I mean, that was wild. So I was like, I want to be around these people. I'll make more money, and I did. And I'll meet cooler people, and I did. And the authors too. That's what I wanted. I was like, I just want the problem solvers. I want solution-oriented people, and then that's what I would focus on. Or like comedians too, or meme pages, because it would make me laugh. So how would you advise someone to consume the internet? Like, what would you tell them to follow and look for when they're scrolling?
You know, not only, I mean, your piece of advice is like really, really important. Like solution-oriented people, that sounds incredibly valuable to have in your feed. I think you also want to have people in your feed that are either bringing information in regards to the goal that you're trying to set, or that are bringing inspiration around that goal, because I think that's really helpful. Like if you're, you know, in your like fitness era, you know, or if you're in your meditation era, whatever it is, you know, bring those people into your algorithm so that you can get fed that good quality content. The other aspect of having a good relationship with it is that you want to balance it out with times of solitude, or times when you're just, you know, you're intentionally doing things where you don't need to have your phone in your pocket or something like that. Because I find that the moments when I go out to my garden and I'm just like, you know, watering the tulsi or taking cuttings from the tulsi. Tulsi is like a medicinal, you know, a tea that you can drink. Those moments, I'm like, if I have my phone in my pocket, I'll take my phone out and just leave it, you know, so I can be out in the garden for like 30, 40 minutes and just like, you know, and it's different because obviously with meditation, I don't have my phone or anything like that, and the phone's off, but it's still, you know, not too far away. It's like it has a timer that's set for an hour. The same thing when my wife and I go for walks, right? We'll like go for walks together. We'll like try to leave our phones behind and having these moments, because there's a lot of health in those small moments of solitude, or small moments when you're like intentionally disconnecting. because that's real human life. Like that's how it was for thousands and thousands of years. So when we lose that and we become like perpetually attached to the phone, I think it's like I don't know, it's almost like an unnecessary safety thing, or we're so like attached to the pleasantness that our algorithms give us. So we need to like disconnect from that, relearn what it's like to just be, and to just let ourselves sit in the present moment.
Yeah. No, I noticed that yesterday. I was with my friends, but I was constantly checking. Like I was going from Instagram to email to X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
But just like all the different apps. And I noticed I was like looking, like, is someone important messaging me? Maybe? Like, I was just like looking for that. And then I was like, you know what? I don't feel good. And I'm like, guys, I was with my friends. I was like, guys, we need to put our phones away and we're going on a walk right now.
Oh,
We're leaving.
Every time you scroll, every time you're moving through the phone, you're burning energy. And I try to remind myself of that, like another scroll, more energy that I'm burning. Because your mind is consuming like so many calories, so much information. So I like that exhausted feeling of having, looked through so many emails, scrolled too much, looked through so much TikTok, like you're literally tired. So you got to put it down.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, have you followed Deion Sanders yet?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of Deion Sanders contact.
I'm
yeah.
obsessed.
Yeah.
No, he's like changing. I don't know what it is.
He's having his moment.
He's having his moment, but I feel like, and I'm not even like big into sports or anything like that, but I feel like I need a coach like that.
Yeah, no,
like he's all of our coach.
I know, he's so funny. I love that the clip of him talking about his cousin, how like he couldn't catch his cousin, and
Wait, tell me that one. I didn't see that one.
he was saying that his cousin was like the fastest person that he ever, like they were like, who's a better athlete than you? He was like, it was definitely my cousin. Like I think his cousin, I don't know if his cousin was like on drugs or something, but he was like, he would like run around and he would try to catch his cousin, but he was too fast. And like it was just like this random untrained athlete who was better than him.
No way.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Okay, you need to send me that.
Yeah.
For me, there was one where he was talking about like not caring what people think. And the way it was edited, it was like, I don't know, it's the combination of what he's saying with the theatrics of the editing.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, yo, I am fired up when I listen to this.
Oh, that's great.
It's unreal. I feel like that's the thing. It's like he provides that sense of being on a team, but you're not even on his team.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like you want to be.
Now you're making me want to see even more of his content. I got to check it out.
But that's the thing that I think about a lot is, do you know Sahil Bloom?
Yeah.
I had him on my podcast recently, and we were talking about how people who play sports have a little bit of a better team mentality. Not everyone, but a lot of them do. They know how to operate in teams outside of the sports that they play.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, man, this whole like team community thing, there must be some kind of link.
Yeah.
And also I think about like, look, I am all for going to these retreats, and I've paid thousands of dollars to go to lots of these things. It's not always within people's financial ability.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I go to the free ones. We don't have to pay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no.
Wait, where are these free ones?
They're all over the world. There's like
That's
15 centers around the United States. I love going there because it's the only place that I go to where money isn't involved. So those centers are all built off of donations, and you can give a donation after you finish one course.
What is this one called?
It's called Vipassana, and it's taught by Goenka. But what's cool is like you can go and do the courses, but there at the end there's not even a suggested donation. There's not like, if you're going to donate.
You could give $1.
You can give it. I have given $1. Like back when I was 24, 25 and I had nothing, I like give $20 because that's all I had. And other times I've walked out of there having given nothing because I didn't have anything. And nobody batted an eye. Nobody was even keeping track of who gives what, right? Like they will give you like a tax receipt, right? If you do give a donation, but they're not like, oh, this person who signed up for the course didn't give anything. Like they don't care. They're literally just there to serve you. They want you to be happy. They teach you this technique and then you're on your way. It's pretty wild.
I love that. You know what it reminds me of? AA or like any of those programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, I have a lot of friends that are either in AA or like Al-Anon or some form of that. And I tweeted something like that, and a few people were like, "Well, I don't like that AA is so religion focused."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, if someone can go there, have an open mind, and just say, "Okay, well, I don't need to focus on the religion stuff, but I can take the lessons,"
Yeah.
then they're winning.
Yeah.
Because that's also free.
Yeah.
That's why the tolerance thing is so ingrained in my, like, I want to teach tolerance so badly because I see the ways that not having tolerance is affecting everyone
Totally.
so negatively.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's really hard. It's funny though, but you can put anything up there. You could put like anything on Twitter or someone's going to be like, nope, disagree, don't like that.
Yeah.
Or like, I just saved 100 cats. And people are like, why? They could have.
Oh my God, did you see the reactions? Yeah, did you see the reactions to Mr. Beast?
Heck yeah.
He's like curing blindness.
And people are losing it. I know.
He's so selfish. How?
Yeah, how? I don't know. I watched all that go down and I was like just so blown away. I don't know. The people are people.
Yeah, people be peopling.
Yeah.
They be peopling. Well, thank you so much for coming on this show. I love this conversation. Hopefully you come back on.
Oh, if you'll have me for sure.
Oh my God.
Back.
Yeah, 100%.